Today on StampTV, I want to show you a fun way to jazz up your focal image with a ceramic tile look. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to do this card project. First, you're going to need some cardstock and pattern paper, and I am using the Gina Designs Ivory cardstock, the dark chocolate, and then I have some smaller pieces of the same. Then I'm using a piece of the pattern paper from the new Journey of the Heart 6x6 pattern paper pack. This pattern paper pack also comes in the Journey of the Heart StampTV kit. Now, you're also going to need some ink, and I am using some of the Gina Designs Black Onyx and some of the Kraft ink. I also have a sponge dauber here. I have a couple of the stamps from the new Journey of the Heart StampTV kit. I have some adhesive, and then I have some of our Ivory Organdy Ribbon. This is the 3/8 of an inch width, and this also comes in the new StampTV kit. I'm also going to use some of these 1/4 inch pop dots, and I'm going to use my Scor-buddy. You can use a scor-pal or any scoring tool you have. I like the Scor-buddy because it's nice and small, it never leaves my workstation, and it's the perfect size for card makers. Okay, so to begin, I'm going to grab this small piece of ivory cardstock and some of the black ink and then this daisy stamp. And I'm going to ink up the stamp using the black ink. Now when you have these larger, bold stamps, you do want to make sure that you get them inked up real well. So I've added quite a bit of ink there. And then I'm going to stamp this right in the center of this panel. And make sure all of that ink transfers over. And there I have my beautiful flowers. You can tell I love these flowers in the Journey of the Heart kit. This is from the With Love and Prayers mini stamp set that comes in that kit. Now while I have this particular ink out, I've got a small piece of ivory cardstock here, and I'm going to stamp my greeting. This is going to be a sympathy card, so I have a greeting that says "So sorry" on it, and I'm going to just take a look at that and make sure that it looks pretty straight. I think I'm going to need my glasses for this one, and I'm going to stamp this down here at the bottom of this little piece of cardstock that I have. So there is my greeting. And the nice thing about cutting it long like this is you've got 4 tries to get it perfectly straight if you want to try it on all different sides, but I think that looks just fine. Okay, so now my next step is going to be to create a piece of background paper for this particular card by using some of the pattern paper, and then I'm going to crinkle it. Now because our pattern paper is relatively thick, you want to be a little bit careful when you crinkle not to tear the cardstock. So I'm just giving it a few little crinkles here because I want to give it the look of aged print. And this is kind of fun to do. Okay, so once I have it kind of crinkled, you can crinkle it a little bit more if you think it needs it. I'm going to take my Kraft ink pad and this sponge dauber, and I'm going to add some ink all over the surface of this piece of cardstock. And if I hit it first kind of lightly, it's going to grab some dark ink all over those crinkles. You can see it'll accent those. So I want to do that first, and that makes it look aged. If you want, the other method is to go direct onto the piece of pattern paper with your ink pad, and that will pick up all the crinkles too as well. So, but I'm going to also then add a little bit of color into the rest of the pattern paper because I want this pattern paper to match my focal image a little bit better, and you'll see what I'm going to do with that. So I want it to be a little bit darker, a little bit more aged. And you can also do this with old books, old newspaper pieces, maybe some old pieces of sheet music that you don't want anymore. This is kind of a fun technique for that. So now I have this aged looking piece of paper, and I'm going to grab a piece of dark chocolate and layer those two together. I'll do that with some of my adhesive here. looks like I'm going to run out of adhesive too. But I always have more. That's one thing I don't like to not have a lot of in the house. Paper towels, toilet paper, and mono adhesive. And of course, white cardstock. Okay, so now I've added that onto that dark chocolate layer, and I can see it's a little bit crooked. It is a little bit more difficult when you're placing crinkled paper down, because as it starts to spread out, it changes position a little bit. So you can just lift it up and reposition it so that it looks right, and that looks a lot better. Okay, so there is my background paper. Now I'm going to just put that aside for a little bit. My next step is to grab the the Scor-buddy. I've got the Cuttlebug on my mind. And you can see that this piece of cardstock that I've stamped on measures 2.5 inches by 4 inches. And what I want to do is score on those 1/2 inch lines. So my first line that I'm going to score on is at 2 inches. Let me hold this whole thing down. So 2 inches. Then 1.5 inches, then 1 inch, and now I'm going to flip it around because it's a little bit easier for me to get in over here, and then again at 2 inches. So there I have evenly spaced 1/2 inch columns. Now I'm going to turn it and do the same thing again. So I'm going to start here at, let's see, we have 4 inches, so I need 3.5 inches, 3 inches, 2.5, 2, 1.5, 1, and then I'm going to flip it around and just do that last one there. So now I have a tiled look on my piece of cardstock that's my focal image. Now I want that to match with this background paper, so I'm going to take some of that Kraft ink again, and I'm going to rub it in a circular motion all over the surface of this with a light touch. And this way, my grout lines, or the lines that I've created with the Scor-buddy, are going to stay a little bit lighter, and that will make that actually look a little bit more like tile. It'll hit mostly the raised areas. Now you'll get a little bit in those lines, and that's okay. As long as you can really see the defined lines, that's the look you're going for. And we're darkening up the piece of cardstock to match the background a little bit. And then of course I want this to match as well, so I'll grab a little bit more of that ink and I will add some ink to that too, so that that also is in that same color family. Alright, my final step here is to assemble this card. So I'm going to put my focal image onto another piece of the dark chocolate. This one should be a little bit easier to position because it's not crinkled. There we go. And then for this little piece, I have another tiny piece of dark chocolate that I want to layer that on. Get that same little border going around. There we go. And to adhere my greeting, I'm going to adhere it kind of on the side like that. I kind of like that look. So I'm going to do that by adding a little bit of mono adhesive onto the back here, and then positioning that just where I want it. I'm going to line it up with a tile mark there, you can see, just to give it a little bit of balance. And then that's going to be my focal image. Now I am going to add a little bit of ribbon going across, so I will need my scissors, which are right back here. Grab those. And then you want to make sure that you're not placing that right under that greeting, so let me just lay that on top and see where that's going to go. So I'll put my ribbon right about there. And flip that around, add a little bit of tape. Now I've run out of mono adhesive, so I have one that's almost empty that I'll finish. There we go. And make that straight on the front. Now I'm going to adhere my focal image panel to my pattern paper layer using some of these 1/4 inch pop dots. So I'm going to put one on each corner, and then I'm going to add just one here on this tab that's sticking out with the greeting. You can add more if you like. Sometimes I do, depending on how big the piece is, but this seems like it will work just fine. And then I'm going to add that onto that panel right there, like that. I'm going to cut a little piece of ribbon here and slip that under. Sometimes it's easier to slip it under with some sort of tool, like a paper piercer, Kraft pick kind of thing, or a pair of scissors. And then I'm just going to tie a little knot in that. And then I'll just trim that. Nice and close, just to make a cute little knot. And then my final step would be to adhere this to my card base. And here I made one a little bit earlier. You can see once the ink lightens up a little bit what that looks like. And here is my finished card project. Try this technique with smaller squares for tiny tiles, or space out your lines even more for a larger tiled background.